Hello, and welcome to this quick video to show how you can create a saved cohort and add it back into your reports. So right now I'm impersonating a district leader. So let's say I'm kind of in that role of math coach and I'm exploring some data and going to work with a few kids here. So I'm going to start by looking, I'm here on the pacing page. I'm going to look at some universal screeners data. I clicked grade 1 there, and now I can see the fall, mid-year, and spring. Because I just have data for the fall, I'm going to right click and delete the fall, or excuse me, the mid-year and spring. So now I'm looking in this building, Wilma Rudolph, how students did overall on this assessment. So I'm kind of giving the use case of I'm a math coach. I'm not doing necessarily even a full-on intervention. These aren't kids where I'm going to be collecting consistent data, but I'm curious about whether just a quick, intensive support at the beginning of the year after I have that screener data, if that's something that will pay off down the road. So I want to know who these students are. I'm going to click that table and see that Honey is kind of our main student here that is just in need support on that overall. So that's kind of a flag just from the beginning that this is a student that needs that level of support right now. I'm going to continue and explore. So by switching up here in the upper right, I can look at the question analysis, and we know there are some questions that are really key for students as they're working through the school year. I can click and see what those questions are by clicking underneath the bar that represents that question. So I'm going to say that I'm also want to grab these 3 students who are well below basic on question 2, because we're doing a little bit of multi-digit counting, and I'm kind of worried if they're not able to keep up right now. So I've got Darnell, Dolores, and Derek, all our D names there. And one thing you'll notice and why that this saved cohort option is useful is you'll see that these are students from different teachers. So we happen to be in the same school. You could also do it across the district, but I'm going to be making this group and then they don't have an existing class that aggregates their data. I'm going to go ahead and check the counting to 22. We've got Chester here, and then we've already got Dolores kind of in this group. So I'm going to say I know these 5 kids. I'm feeling good. I can work with them. Maybe we're just going to do a couple days, really intensive counting support, talking through practicing these skills. And then later over the course of the year, I'm going to want to check in and see if I made an impact. When we get to the mid-year, are these kids keeping up? And if not, how can we continue to support them? But we're looking for that evidence that our quick intervention was successful. So over here on the right, you'll see I have a plus sign by cohorts. If I click that, I can come here to student, and here I can either add one single student or I can add my group. So I'm just going to search for these students. Dolores. And Chester. Okay. And now I've got my group here of these 5 students, and I must have got one of the wrong Derek's, I think, there, so because I'm only seeing 4 students, but for this demo, that will work. But I can see how these students did overall. I can go back to the stacked bar. Sure enough, none of these students are considered proficient on the overall. Sometimes there's places that overall is helpful. Oftentimes that question analysis will give you some really detailed information. But there's my group. And I'm going to click this 3-dot menu, and you'll see I have the option to save a cohort. The default place it takes me is my user folder, and I'm just going to save it here. And we're going to call this USNS beginning of the year quick response. Okay, so now I've got that cohort saved, and let's imagine I'm going to go again, do some of that quick response counting, whatever that looks like. But then later on, as we collect data, I can come back to that group and track them in comparison to their peers. So right now I just have that one data point, but as I get the mid-year, as I get the spring, I can track in a line graph. Are we kind of closing this performance gap? So we have it here. Let me go ahead and remove that, and I'm going to show you how to add it back. So right now we have the fall. I'm going to add that green click that green plus sign. Here where it says saved cohort, I'm going to click that. It asks me to select the cohort. And I was testing this demo earlier, but here's my second one. I can click, and add that. So now I've got that back. Again, as I have data fill in over the course of the year, I can just go look at that group of students anytime. That is helpful. So that's how to create and bring back in a saved cohort. There's a lot of ways to use that. But one thing I will just remind you is if you are an interventionist or a math coach and you are creating classes, you don't also need to create a saved cohort. So you can always add a student class just by clicking that plus sign and going to a class. So if it's something that's configured in a class in Forefront, it is redundant to generate that saved cohort. But if in this example, it's just a little group of kids that for whatever reason, I just want to look at them in the aggregate compared to other students, that's a great place to use that saved cohort.